until 75 or 82 was the last time I used the four-way PA.
Okay, so what would be the listening experience back then versus now? I remember concerts back then.
I don't like thinking about that.
And it was a completely different experience going to concerts back then.
We used to go to concerts. That's the operative word.
Yeah.
When you go to a concert, like when the symphony's playing, you go in, you sit in a chair, you watch the symphony, and you listen to the symphony. That's a concert. It's a musical performance. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Now we do shows. Shows are different. Well, now you have scenery, and you have gags, and fireworks, and all kinds of other stuff. In my opinion, the more stuff you have, the less 1 inch equals 1 inch, man shown actual size. Why would you want to look at the other thing I don't understand is why would you want to record a show? Because it's the picture's going to be doing this, number one, and the sound is going to be shit because the mic is about a 1/16 of an inch in diameter.
Right, and you're never going to go back and listen to it again. Right.
Well, I wouldn't.
The Beatles stopped playing back in 1966 because they couldn't hear themselves and the audience couldn't hear them either.
Right.
Okay. What were the PA systems back then?
In 66, it would have been public address systems, which is, that's what PA stands for, a PA system, public address. But it's PA systems. No. So the big band era up until, what year do you think?
Well, probably the 50s and 60s.
Okay. A country band, they probably played concerts, Grand Ole Opry, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they weren't screaming loud.
No.
They didn't have big giant amplifiers.
No.
And the people were not screaming. They were watching a musical performance, so you would just need to amplify a vocal so you could hear that. And you start doing popular bands in any venue, and you get people screaming, you have to compete with that, but you're never going to win. I mean, even now, people.
I remember concerts in the 70s. First times I went in the middle 70s, and it sounded you could hear perfectly then.
It was in the 70s would have been big stacks of components, like RCA bins. RCA bin was also called like a W box. It was speakers, I guess, that came out of a sound for movies that would be behind the picture sheet. But back then, when people designed PA systems, they did it by physics, the right way. Mm-hmm. So a W box had two 18-inch speakers in it facing backwards, and it was called a W box because if you look down at it, the way the baffles went inside, it was a giant W. But it was an efficient cabinet. So because the cabinet was designed correctly, you could blow a match out in front of house with about 10 watts into the low frequency. It was just very efficient. When it came to front-loaded stuff, it's less efficient. You need more of it, so you make bigger piles of it, and you need more amplifiers. But that was the difference between an original PA system, not an original PA, the early rock PAs. They were horn-loaded. They were all horn-loaded, and that's the right way to do it. It's more components. They're big. It's heavy, but it's efficient. So everybody wants a smaller look. They don't want to be looking. They used to make a joke about the S4 cabinets. We used to use 72 of them indoors, which was great because that's 144 18-inch speakers. So, that was a nice kick drum sound. But all you would see when you look at the stage is speakers. They used to call it the black cloud.
Right.
Then line arrays were developed. Line arrays are just a different way of doing the sound.
That's what you see at
everyone.
Yes.
Everyone has line arrays. Every PA you see now has a line array PA.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say that's good about the line array is you can stand in front of it with a microphone, like bands that I work for have long runways, 100 feet long. So you're standing 100 feet in front of the PA system.
And it doesn't feedback.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's great because, again, I have no say over it. We're going to have a runway. Oh, no, you can't do that because it'll feedback. They'll listen to that for about 2 microseconds. And then
when people are running out on a runway, okay, and if they don't have in-ears in, How do they stay in sync with what's going on?
Because the wedges are out there. The wedges are in real time.
Okay, got it.
They have to be screaming loud because now...
And the wedges are lining the
Yep. But the wedges have to get over... Now you're in front of the PA system, which is loud enough to be heard back there.
Yeah.
And you have a wedge with a 12-inch speaker and a horn trying to get over that big PA.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, most bands are use in-ears because it's more consistent. No matter where you go on stage, your mix goes with you.
Yes.
You know, you don't walk in and out of the pattern of the speakers, and it allows performers more freedom to go wherever they want. Is it more fun? Probably, I would say no. I wouldn't dig listening to little...
Because the bands are disconnected from things a little bit,
yeah,
right? From the audience.
You put audience mics up, but it's not, I don't think it's the same.
Do you put audience mics up?
Yes.
Okay.
For the monitor mixer to bleed audience into the in-ear mixes.
So it sounds normal to the performer.
More normal.
More normal.
Yeah.
But and James are using Axe-Effects now, so all this stuff is coming through there.
You mean like an amp in a box?
Yeah. So
like a fractal.
Fractal, that's what it is. It's a fractal. Yeah. So if everyone's on ears, that you can just appear anywhere on the stage, but the drums still have to be mic'd.
Yep.
Correct?
That's correct.
So no matter where the drum kit appears when it's moving around, because they were doing that because at a stadium, you know,
Did the drum kit move around?
Drum kit moved around different places.
Was it the same drum kit?
I don't know if it was.
Okay.
Because they raised the stuff up. I was sitting on this light tower area. They had a special seat, and I was sitting up there, but I still couldn't tell how they were appearing because the lights go down and they kind of appear in another spot. They're like way over there, or they're way over here, and then they're close, you know, and something like that. Would everything be mic'd up separately then if they are just raising up a separate
If they're doing
kit?
multiple drum kits in different locations, absolutely, you have to do that. You either have to do that or you have to have one drum kit that's mic'd up with a really long sub-trunk cable.
Okay.
I mean, that's definitely possible. I've done that before where the drum kit came all the way down the runway 100 feet in front of the stage.
Okay.
While they were playing.
Okay. And so what does that do? How does it not feed back? Oh, because of the line arrays, right? Or is it kind of a pain?
No, it was okay. I mean, it was the first time that I ever did anything like that, so I was too dumb to know what might happen. So it just it just, you know, hey, it's working, great. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're too dumb to know,
right? It's good to be
probably
right?
I agree 100%. It's worked for me. Yeah, the other alternative is you have 4 drum kits and they just raise up and down and appear at different spots, but that's, you know, 4 times whatever, 4 times the amount of stuff to go wrong. It's I don't know how the show was designed. I've never seen the show. I know now when I worked at Radio City Music Hall, I mixed the Christmas show there. You know, I had been on the road, I probably 35 or 40 years at that time, but I sat there the first time I mixed that with my mouth hanging open. That was some of the coolest stuff I have ever seen in my life. In Radio City Music Hall, there's a pit, and that was cool. The thing was, and I kept thinking, I'm like, how the hell are they cabling this? And this is something like the trick you just told me about reversing a floor tom leg.
Yeah.
You got to tell them about that later. This was something that I had never thought of. They had there was a snake system built into the band car, and there were mult cables built into each stage elevator. So what they would do is the band would drop down to the basement and the downstage elevator would drop down. They would clip on another snake in parallel with the one that's running. They would clip another snake onto the downstage elevator, then break the snake for the band car.
Right.
All these mics were condensers. You know
my
what happens
God,
if you unplug a condenser mic?
Right.
Boom.
How did that not happen?
I asked the same question, like, well, this is the way we do it. I'm like, you know, oh my God. Honest to God, you couldn't hear it. I mean, if it was a really...
Oh my God, when you unplug a condenser like that, it's...
Well, you're talking about unplugging like 60 of them at the same time. I couldn't believe it. After they told me what was going on, after I closed my mouth, I would sit and I would listen. You could hear this, just the ever slightest little tick. I couldn't figure out, because they're applying voltage twice.
Right.
It's hooked up to the desks where it is. They then latch another cable on. I cannot remember the last time I had a bad mic cable, snake line to the front of the house.
Amazing.
Bad channel in the console. I mean, you get a bad channel, you get a noisy pot or something. All right, the console is how old? It's old.
Yeah.
So, like I said before, a bad channel, great. Pull this out, throw it away, put a new one in, everything's great. But it is that reliable. And that's key. It doesn't matter how good your shit sounds. If it doesn't work, you're a jerk. There's too many. This is business. This is big business. The amount of money that people pay for tickets, do some math. So you got 60,000 people coming. Say the average ticket price is $200. Is that, you think that's right, or is it probably more?
Maybe, I don't
even
know.
If it's $200, that's $12 million gross.
Yeah, got to be right.
Absolutely. No offense to any of my other people that I work with, but if the lights go off, you turn the lights on in the stadium and you keep going. The video goes off, sorry about your luck. Go get some binoculars.
Yeah.
The audio goes off, good night.
Right.
So that is why I will opt for reliability over anything else.
Use reverb on the snare.
Nope.
Use effects in the voice, though.
Nope.
No effects in the voice.
Nope. You have an incredible amount of reverb in a venue.
Right.
Why are you going to put reverb on something in a reverb environment? You're adding confusion to the confusion. Oh, my board tapes sound better. Who cares?
Okay, so when you go and hear someone,
Yep.
do you ever go to concerts or no?
No. I mean,
Okay, let me ask you this.
I know what you're going to say, and yes, I did. There was a guy named Clive Franks that used to mix Elton John.
Uh-huh.
That guy was the king of effects. I mean, he used stuff and you could hear it. Now, I only heard him in the one particular venue that I happened to hear him at, but Clive had a reputation. He is a great mixer. And when he used stuff, you could definitely hear it, and it sounded great. It really did. Now, what did it sound like in the Enormo Dome? Who knows? I'm sure you could still hear the effects, but when you get back in the sort of toward the back of the building, underneath the overhang, and stuff starts bouncing around in that space, it's going to be hard to discern things normally, let alone with a mountain of effect on it.
Yeah.
So I just opt to not do that, because to me, just having the inputs is the best chance of hearing everything. It doesn't add more confusion to the confusion.
Do they have effects in their monitor mixes?
In the ears.
Yeah, the ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's dry. I cannot remember the last time I had a bad mic cable, snake line to the front of the house.
Amazing.
Bad channel in the console. I mean, you get a bad channel, you get a noisy pot or something. All right, the console is how old? It's old.
Yeah.
So, like I said before, a bad channel, great. Pull this out, throw it away, put a new one in, everything's great. But it is that reliable. And that's key. It doesn't matter how good your shit sounds. If it doesn't work, you're a jerk. There's too many. This is business. This is big business. The amount of money that people pay for tickets, do some math. So you got 60,000 people coming. Say the average ticket price is $200. Is that, you think that's right, or is it probably more?
Maybe, I don't.
In case you get into like a negative reverb environment, like outdoors in a field, or at rehearsals.
Explain this negative reverb.
Well,
yeah.
No ambience, not negative reverb, but no ambience.
No,
like outdoor
outdoor
field.
Shows. Yes.
I would possibly use reverb if absolutely, if I got really bored.
Well, it's weird. When I would play outside, there's just nothing. You get nothing. I mean,
you get nothing back.
Get nothing back.
But if you stand on a couple of bad sounding stages, you're going to dig not getting anything back.
That's right.
because you're not going to want what's coming back. How's this gig going to be today, Dave? You know, some of the best sounding football games in history have been played here. That's the truth. It's
Right.
built. They're built for the sports franchises. They're not built for entertainment. What are you going to do? It's a bad sounding gig. I thought about sitting around crying, but that wasn't an option, and it sure as hell wasn't going to fix anything.
Right.
I'm not doing the gig because it doesn't sound very good in here. All right, you can do that once. You have to do it. You just have to get on with it. So that was and that being lazy is my philosophy for not using anything. That and nobody came to see me. You know, a lot of front of house guys got big egos. You know what? I can't stand that. I really can't.
Dave, you get hired.
You're not curing cancer. You know, you're not brokering peace between the Democrats and the Republicans. You're mixing sound for a band, you idiots. You know.
Okay, but you get hired to do the biggest gigs because it sounds great when you do them. I'm saying
I don't know. I've never hired me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But it's word of mouth, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
As I said before, I've never worked for a bad band, and I pretty much only worked for pretty big bands.
Yeah.
And so they talk to each other. They have buddies in other bands, you know, or their managers talk to the other managers and stuff. So it's kind of like a small community. It's
Yeah.
You know, and they talk. They talk.
Yeah.
Or they come to see a show on a day off. Mick Fleetwood was at the gig the other night. I love Mick, great guy. But that, you know, for example, stuff for 45 years. So it looks like a culmination of 45 years of fooling around. So, Rick, you like the drum sound?
Love the drum sound.
Okay, even though I mix balls loud, just because it's more fun, but beside it being loud, it's not painful.
No.
Okay, so how I do it is when I EQ, this is a graphic, I still use a graphic, yes, I'm old, I'm bald, right? So, I start off by EQ and stuff, I leave 20 to 80 flat, zero. That's the most low end you can get out of the PA, because I have all the other frequencies pulled down, really all the way out, neg 15. I play the James Newton Howard and Friends CD, and then I just start adding back in to the maximum amount of low end. Now I know that 160 sounds horrible. It sounds horrible on drums. I think it sounds horrible on everything. So I hate 160. So I leave 160 out at neg 15, always. So at 80 hertz, it starts to come down, and 160's out the whole way because I hate it. An octave of 160 is 315. I've skipped a few frequencies in here because 315 is an octave of that. You know, it comes back up, drifts around 315. It's down a little bit, back up 400, 500, and then it drops back down at 630 because that's an octave of 315, which is an octave of 160, which I still hate. So then it kind of drifts around, back up close to flat around 800, 1K, but this is the stuff that hurts. 2K, 2.5, 3.15K, 4K. That stuff hurts. That's pain. When you start hurting people, they will have no time for you. You suck. They will not listen to your stuff.
You can't listen to it.
If it hurts, you can't. And this all comes from when I mixed Tina Turner.
Yeah.
Her manager wanted it as loud as I could get it. But I would have grandma, the kids, their kids, and their kids' kids